My name is Fred Perlee, and I'm a farmer. I grow in central Missouri, just about an hour and a half south of here. How many grow for market? Anybody here that is growing anything for market that's trying to make a living? Okay, one, maybe one or two here. That's great. It's really challenging. Those of you who do, you really know. We started off with just a little garden, my family and I. There's 5 of us total. We used to live in Florida and for about 35 years. And how many are from Florida or the deep south with lots of sand? That's a challenge, isn't it? To garden in sand. That itself is a problem. And so I learned a little bit about making good soils. And it was an experience of good lesson to learn, particularly when you see your plants dying away. And I'm in charge of weeding at a young age. My dad taught me how to work early on, and his motto was, if you don't work, you don't eat. And so we were out there after school an hour a day working steadily, trying to keep this place weeded. And all the work that we did, sometimes it just didn't pan out, the vegetables that we wanted. We particularly specialized in salad greens, and my dad was known as someone who really makes a good salad. In fact, I think I told this story last year. He invited some dentists over to the house and their wives, and they came over. This was the days of the big haystack hair. And I can remember I was just constantly training my eyes on this lady, beautiful hairdo, and she took one bite out of her salad, and out comes this little green object flying out of the salad and on top of her hair, kind of on the side, and jumped in. There's a little green tree frog, and that was the last time anyone was invited over. But gardening kind of gets you, experiences like that, and so it's all worth it. But and we learned our lesson. In Florida, a lot of times it gets real hot, like it does around here. But it's hot, and we have to find shade sometimes, and some things like lettuce and greens, it's a problem with that. They bolt very easily. And so we learned to put our lettuce along the east side of an oak tree, which we had growing in the backyard, which kind of shaded the western sun. And so there was a problem that we solved through just learning. So a lot of things you can do is just experiment. You got a problem, you find out some solutions, and then you go through an experiment with it. And don't be afraid to try again, and don't give up. So it's kind of a 3 or 4 step process. And our family now provides for our own self, our food for the whole year. We sometimes grow in through the winter, and I'll tell you a little bit about that because that's a problem for some people. They can't figure out how to grow food through the winter. And we've done that and been able to survive off of that. And now we're feeding other people at the farmer's market. And so it's quite an experience. How many have garden problems here? Anybody? All right. How many garden? All right. So if you garden, you're going to have garden problems. If you don't have problems, you don't have a garden. So I can tell real quick. Everybody has garden problems. When we started in Arkansas, the first problem we had was deer. How many have deer problems? What's the way you solve deer problems besides shooting them? Huh? Okay, there it is right there. We tried everything in the world. We put this scent stuff out here that smelled really bad, rotten eggs with garlic and pepper. Yeah, that works good on sponges until the first rain, and we have to keep going and maintenance. Finally, we put up, the young lady here just said, put up an electric fence at 8 foot high. Ours isn't 8 foot, but we went and cut down some of the cedars that we had around the juniper trees and just installed a fence. That solved the problem. Because deer are lazy. Although my deer, they found out ways to somehow get under that fence sometimes, so you got to dig down a little bit so to discourage them. And so we lined them with rocks. We took the rocks out of the field, lined her along there, and also buried it down when we installed it about 4 inches into the ground. And that solved the problem for the most part, unless one of the boys leaves the door open and the deer come in and graze 90-foot bed of lettuce at night. I watched a deer. They're very nimble. They'll go through a 8x8 hole in the fence, square hole. One young doe did that and got stuck in her hind legs right and just dangling there, poor thing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to get near her because she was scared from me walking into the garden and catching her. And she finally just wiggled her way loose. So you want to make sure your fence is a little bit smaller probably than 8 inches if you're trying to protect deer, because they'll go in or out. How about raccoons? Any problem with coons? How do we solve coon problems? Making coonskin caps? What? All right. Okay, relocation. All right. Sometimes I get out at night with my skivvies with my 22, but I can't do that all night long. So I've caught deer red-handed in my hoop house that way. But the best way is relocation. I just set out some live traps, and my kids keep getting on me for deer. For dispersing coons with a 22, but I decided to go ahead and just be polite and catch them live, and I just put them in Mark Twain National Park or Forest. And usually, although I've heard that it hurts the animals to relocate them, and yes, it probably does create a problem with figuring out where food, but I try to put them in areas where there's lots of water and that kind of thing in their natural environment. Another.
We had a fenced-in yard for our Great Pyrenees, and we just enlarged it and put our garden there. No problem.
No problems. Yeah, when you have a dog, it makes it easy. I don't know if Great Pyrenees, that's a dog there. But I just simply put an electric fence which keeps out deer and coons, and a couple lines going across around it, and we're done with that, no problem. Squirrels is a different thing. I've had a hard time with squirrels. Nets work, but you have any ideas about squirrels that I did see a thing on YouTube with this guy who actually baited squirrels coming into like a slingshot thing, and they'd climb in the bag and he just let go and they went flying, and it was quite hilarious, but I can't do that all day. I have to farm, although it is fun to watch, and it's not harmless because they just go at it again. They'll go up and they'll run back down. 10 minutes later, they're right there back in the slingshot. So anyway, critters are always an issue here. That was probably the number one issue, and working with Baker Creek, that's probably the number two issue that people call. I work on Thursdays answering garden questions, and that's probably number two about pests like squirrels and coons. What do I do about these guys? Gophers. They make lots of traps and things for gophers that are quite lethal that you can look up just online. But some people don't have computers, so you have to work with people, and I understand. And I try to point them in the right direction as far as these kind of pests. Any other issues with four-legged pests? Pardon me? Voles, yeah. Voles are the same issue. Yeah, cats, rats. I had deals with rats. We put out about 300 tomatoes in a high tunnel. They cleaned me out of half of my tomatoes in 2 nights. I wasn't around there, and I come back and all these, they're just gone. They're vanished, all cut off at the base. And I didn't know really what it was. I said, well, it looks like possible wood rats coming in under there because we live kind of around a wooded area. And sure enough, I set out some rat traps, caught 5 of them, and that ended the problem. So this year, what do? You mark it on your calendar, take notes of what happened last year. I always take notes. I put it on the calendar, what I did. Every single thing that I do, I write about it. I take notes about it. So we do a preemptive strike this year, right? And I go ahead and put my rat traps out there before the tomatoes are put in place. And what do you think I caught? 5 rats again. 5 rats again. They're living around there. After that, no more rat problem. So you try to do some strategies by taking notes, and that helps you to prepare for the following season. I'm always referring to them. when do I plant? When's a good time to plant this? I go back and I see it right on my notes. It's time. Let's put it in. So these are little issues that you can do. So take notes. That's another thing. What do you think the number? Go ahead. Rabbits. I don't know what to tell you about there because they come in all sizes. We just chased out in smaller fence, 1 inch by 1 inch, and little baby rabbits in our they're eating our. The only thing I can suggest is just plant more food. Really. And I told my wife we're going to have a rabbit problem again the same time, and sure enough, there's a bunch of little baby rabbits running around our little 1 inch, our little garden, 50 by 50 garden. And so we just plant in succession. We just plant more of that particular thing, which was leafy vegetables pretty much. Rabbits they like to eat bean shoots, but they went through our chard and what was the other one? Cauliflower and broccoli.